woke up, had experienced tonight before. It's really fragmented, but I was in this big place. It was like an auditorium, some massive place, and I was chastising. I was screaming at him. I ended up chucking a load of papers at him, writings, new presentation writings or something. And I was basically, I was frustrated with this. I don't know. I think it was like a bishop or something like that. And all I can remember, the only words I said that I can remember was something about the Abrahamic religions are a terrible distortion, and that's the only words I can remember from me saying. And it was the fragment I got. It was just like me, and I'm like chucking all these papers at him, and I'm like doing it in anger, and that's that's it. I always seem to be chucking papers at people in anger. That's it.
A visit to the real side, seemingly full of portent. I seemed to be walking up a country lane, accompanied by my wife Gwen and a youngish-looking man who apparently worked for the bank. The man bent down to pick something up and examine it. On realising it was a dog's dropping, he hastily threw it down again and started speaking to me. There's never a dull moment in my dreams, is there? But, yeah. He said something to the effect of, "In view of your bad behaviour..." At this point I cut in and said, "What bad behaviour? What are you talking about?" Gwen then cut in and said something to the effect of, "Let him finish." But I wasn't having anything of this, and rather angrily demanded again an explanation from the man. But then the scene changed, and we were all in what appeared to be the bank, though not one I am familiar with from the physical side. In fact, the ground floor lobby area reminded me of my old school, the Luton Grammar School. It was full of people, and Gwen and I had to practically fight our way through the crowd following the man. Then I lost sight of them both. I carried on working my way through the crowd and thought maybe they had gone up the stairs, which were in front of me, though slightly off to the left. I decided to go up the stairs. The stairs themselves seemed almost devoid of people, which seemed odd, seeing the masses down below. I did pass one man coming down and rather oddly asked him if he had seen my wife. Needless to say, he said he hadn't. There was no sign of them up on the first floor, that's the second floor in America, which seemed as more or less deserted as the stairs. The scene changed again, and I now seemed to be sitting at a square table in a corner next to some stairs going upwards. I don't think I was still in the bank. It looked more like some sort of tea room area in perhaps a large store. I felt this building too was full of people, though I didn't actually see them as such. Looking towards the staircase, which did have lots of people going up it, I suddenly saw a man I recognised, and he obviously recognised me, as he stopped and looked at me long and hard, and then grinned a greeting to me, which I reciprocated. It was an elderly version of a boy I had known at school, in fact sat next to for a couple of years or so, as he was also a smith, though no relation, believe it or not. We had become friends and hung around together for 2 or 3 years, but he wasn't a particularly good friend as it turned out. I did mention him in an earlier Skype in connection with a dream I had walking up a street and suddenly seeing ahead the girl called Anne, who I was madly in love with, although she never knew it, and was terrified that my so-called friend, whose first name was Michael, would make me look stupid in front of her. That would have been about his mark. I only kept up the friendship for as long as he lived in the same road as Anne, desperately longing to glimpse her. Next thing I knew, in the recent dream being discussed, Mick, as we always called him, and 2 or 3 other men I had seen with him on the stairs were sitting with me at a table and talking, though I could not hear what was actually being said. Mick and the others kept grinning at each other, and I had the distinct feeling I was being set up for something. At one point, I suddenly felt somebody was standing right behind me, but I glanced over my shoulder and there was nobody there. That's the end of the dream, and just thoughts on it. The whole thing seemed to be a warning to my mind. Yet another dream indicating things are not what they seem, and to beware the duplicity of others. In a way, it seemed to have played out in reverse, as the final scene with Mick and his gang looked like a replay of what had led up to the bankman's assertion in the first scene. The amusing moment with the doggy message neatly sums up the actual nature of the alleged misdemeanour. The ascension by me up the empty staircase in the bank suggests transition to the real side, while the bulk of the population remained down below oblivious. I was given, though, even a warning here by seeing the second staircase groaning with dubious people. I could only actually see Mick and his cohorts waiting to entrap me before I could ascend it. As always, though, even in a dark dream such as this, there was a protective real guide there close on hand, in this case the figure I sensed standing behind me. And that's the end of the first dream. If Duane wishes to comment on it, please.
Again, that's your personal life decisions, and you see what you're doing there through the actions. And yeah, we all make these choices, and so and yes, old relationships, especially that we don't even realize we're hanging on to, and so you see a familiar face there, etc. And you know, it's funny when we see people that we used to know, there's that recognition there, isn't it? It's recognizing them, etc. And so and there's old agreements there, just like you expressed. And so these things are showing up because the boys are, they know that what's there, and for you to face them and decide if you're going to hang on to them or if you're going to go with it, etc. So, and again, your old friends, companions, or whatever, they provide a view there. Is that what you want, etc. As you have the opportunity to climb the steps, you might say, and go higher and get past it all. So, you know, always the opportunity there. And again, when you have these experiences and you come back here, look at your intent. You know, look at your real intent. Where is it? What do you see? That's your choice, but you always have that option, like the sun shining. Compare it.
Yet another driving experience on the real side. I was on a wide stretch of road that rather resembled an airport runway. It seemed to be one way, but with no lane markings. I came to a T-junction marked by huge arrows, much larger than usual, on the tarmac. I chose to turn right. This rather blatantly seemed to be a choice of moving to the future as opposed to left to the past. Then I found myself on foot, walking along a typical English seafront, with the sea to my left and a long row of souvenir etc. shops to my right. I came to an oldish looking man who seemed to be complaining, either to me or himself, about the shops. It seemed their opening hours didn't please him for some reason. Looking at them, they all seemed to be open as far as I could see, and I carried on walking. The ocean seems to figure quite often in my dreams, and seems to be symbolising the ever-present all is, and I feel the real guide's always there to help me and to chivvy me along when I falter, as I frequently do. The old man's shops in some ways seems to indicate different ways of seeing things, rather like the half-full or half-empty glass metaphor. The scene now completely changed, and I appear to be walking a smallish black dog, perhaps symbolic in itself. I always remember 50 or so years ago at the office where I worked at the time, and referring to another member of the staff who seemed to be in a not unusual morose mood, my boss grinning at me and saying, "I see so-and-so has got his black dog with him again." In the dream, we seemed to be walking up to a cliff top, and when we got to the edge, I peered down, but it wasn't a sharp 90-degree drop to jagged rocks below, but a rather steep, grassy descent at about maybe 60 to 70 degrees or so, broken by grassy outcrops here and there, and flattening out about 100 feet below into grassy land, running off to visible infinity. I seemed to be in some kind of quandary as whether to attempt an undoubtedly hazardous run down the hill with a dog or not. Although there could be read into this a suicidal theme, I don't think it meant that. As mentioned above, the cliff top turned out to be no beachy head, a 200-foot vertical English cliff face to rocks below, so much loved by suicides that there is now a permanent suicide watch attendant there apparently, but a more survivable, if dangerous, sudden descent. Now it seems to me more about choice again, a kind of left or right, backward or forward decision. Very backwards in the case of totally pointless and time-wasting suicide. The next and final short scene had me in the company of a pretty girl, holding up to me a framed photograph. Apparently she had found a frame that the photo exactly fitted. When she showed me it in great joy, I saw it was a picture of me. It looked absolutely nothing like my present physical face, but I still knew it was me. Perhaps it was a past life glimpse, or maybe a future one somewhere. If so, going by the girl, it looks like I made the right choices. And that's the end of my dream. Over to you again, Duane, please.
Well, I see that as ending up as a romantic affair, and you would know best.
Well, I don't know. I didn't go any further than that, so I don't know what happened in the end.
That was a jest, young man, but it's up to you. But you see where you ended up. So, and it's interesting that is this place known for this place you experienced there? Is that supposedly known for suicides?
I don't know where it was actually, but I wouldn't have thought so. I was just comparing it to a place that really is, which is called Beachy Head, which it wasn't there. But it was a place I'd never knowingly seen in life, so I couldn't honestly say where it was, if it actually exists. But obviously somewhere on the real side it does.
Oh yeah, everything exists, so it's like whatever, and again, it's always your choice. But there's different types of suicide, and one of them that Count Albert took was that he gave up. He didn't kill himself, but he just gave up, and then he let the body die. So he didn't strangle himself or cut his wrists, but he just gave up, and that was shown by one of the seer witnesses. She was shown a big sign that said suicide.
I had a dream a few days ago where, well, it was one of these so vivid dreams, so to say, where I felt like I have been there for real and go through that situation. So I had a dream that I'm moving from my house where I live and where I lived for the most of my life. And I left the house together with some of my family members. and moved into another one. But that the other house that I moved in was not far away from this one, maybe just down the street where this current one is. And the difference is the house where I lived first in that dream and looks just exactly the same as the one where I live. And it has 2 floors, and I lived on the first floor. And the one that I moved in, the new one, had just the ground level. So, and it was different in that sense that it was somehow made from more natural materials like wood, and there were a lot of greens around and trees. So more real, more natural environment. And the funny thing is that in that new house, there were my parents, I think, and they both died a few years ago. Yeah, and that was one part of the dream. And the other part of the dream is that I walked across the street where my old house was, and I looked at it, and it just looked somehow old and empty, and I was totally not interested in going back there. It's just like I totally had nothing to do there any longer. I didn't feel any kind of attachment or that I was sorry that I moved away from there. Nothing. I just moved. So, and yeah, that was basically it. And the only thing that I did not basically understand really is that I saw my passed away parents in that new house. The rest is, I feel like I just had finally managed to take some courage to just give up of some of my old attachments.
Hello, Biljana. Is that it? Was that it?
Yeah, that's it.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you. Did you, by any chance, discuss this with Vesna or anybody else? Or it's really very simple. What you went through there, you see it. You moved to a new place, and it's kind of like you're more grounded, but also you're aware of your parents, etc., because they see you. They see what's going on. It's just like my former mother and father. They're somewhere in the other side. Doesn't matter where, but from here, and they see what's going on too. And so you're just aware of that, and especially when you're looking at the old house, no matter how it is, you see that now you have an objective view. You have a new place, and so yeah, you're doing better. You're letting the old stuff go. And so as you do the new you and you learn to recognize the is, eventually you'll surpass everything, and that's your choice. But well, you know the experience, and you decide if you like it or not, or you can accept it or not. It's all up to you. But there's your opportunity. But the real you seems to want to move on. Yeah, more simpler consciousness and lifestyle. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. And now, as you were talking, I just had an idea that these parents that I saw in the new house, maybe, just maybe, I just feel it like that it may be just a kind of small part of these old attachments that I still carry on with me, even though I move forward.
Yeah, well, that's true also. So again, we all have this body consciousness here. And if I reflect upon my parents who, the so-called parents that left, my dad, 2001, my mom was about 1990. But there's still something there because you know these people, and it's okay. And yeah, it's there, but you know what? Just face it. And these are beings like you on their journey. And just, you can just be right here and see them and say, hey, it's all okay. We're all beings on our journey. We make our choices. we know each other. And so again, you decide the arrangement of your life, etc. So you know, again, we have this body here, and we have these ideas, and it takes quite a while to just let go to where we're all just beings of light. We're being to being, and so we go through the stages, etc. So no, it's cool. Thank you for sharing. Yes, you're always welcome to share. Thank you.